So it is sad to say that there is a reason we're talking about the last picture show today. That, of course, is, I think, January 6th. Peter Bogdanovich, the director and writer of this film, passed away. He was 82. And I like him as a director, and I've always wanted to kind of like talk about his filmography. And I figured, let's do the last picture show because it's probably his most prolific work. But he's such an interesting director because a lot of his career was right in that era of new Hollywood when it's shifting to what it would become out of the studio system. And he never really like had the big break as some of the other guys. He's had big pictures, and I think the last picture show might be his biggest film. It's hard to say, but he's definitely just been consistently working and putting out content and creating and doing all these interesting things without ever stepping up to be the next big guy. Like there's names in his generation and his era that are bigger than him who I would say aren't as creative or interesting. But he is just a story director who has done a lot of great stuff, and I'm just super impressed with his work. So we're talking The Last Picture Show. It is 1971. We're going back to the 50s right there. You know, when he's young, he's spry, he wants to talk about the world he's a part of, and I completely understand that. We haven't really talked about coming of age films on Movie Tales too much. It's a genre that I enjoy because I'm still a young guy, and I've still experiencing and going through these things that people are talking about in their pictures. And The Last Picture Show, you know, there's, especially in the 70s, there's a lot of this nostalgic era. You know, Happy Days is right there and everything. There's a lot of people trying to capture that Americana feeling, and I think The Last Picture Show goes for that, but doesn't like explicitly say something about Americana. It's like we're in Texas, everybody's got their fake accents on, or their realistic accents, for better or ill. They're talking in the accents of a Texan person of this time. And there's definitely like a sense of community here. It's a small town, and you get the sense like, oh, everyone knows these kids that play on the football team or the basketball team. They know them. They're like, why don't you tackle better? Why don't you get into the world and do some more stuff there? And I completely get that. Like, that is a small town feeling. That is something very Friday Night Lights. It's just something we've seen a bunch, especially in a town of Texas, which I completely understand why that would be that way. It's really cool to see. So our main character here is played by Timothy Bottoms, and he is Sonny, and basically it's his story of growing up and coming to terms. You pretty much see his life through a year, through the relationships he's getting out of, through the relationships he's starting, the people he loves, what he wants to do with his life. And it's very interesting, especially when you have a lead in a coming-of-age film. It's definitely a passive character where they are kind of experiencing everything without actually being the driving force. They go on adventures with their friends. They experience all this stuff. And Sonny is a great example of how you do that kind of lead character, because it's not till like the end of the film where all of his, you know, experiences come to terms of the choices he made, and he's learning how to experience things. But I get it. And I think especially post World War II, which is, you know, the 50s, you are a kid who probably your father was there, or people you know were there. You are experiencing some sort of shell shock, just like the aftermath of that, and how that affects your view of the world. So he ages pretty fast in that year, where you see he burns a lot of bridges, new experiences come to him, and he kind of just gets everything he wants. But I get it. I think that's something this generation in particular would experience, where it's like the owner of, you know, the pool club, or where the guys go to hang out, he passes away, he leaves it to you. You just suddenly get it. You know, you're just driving to Mexico for a weekend with your friend. You just go there, you do it. There's no ramifications, there's no justification. You just go do it, which works completely. That is something that that generation did, and I completely buy it. So I love his interpretation of Sonny. He is, again, a very good character who is just emoting perfectly. He's experiencing everything he's going through. He's feeling all these different emotions. He's doing a great job of portraying those. I do like him. And it's just really impressive to see a young Jeff Bridges. You know, I'm a fan of Jeff. He's the best Bridges, obviously, but I haven't seen a lot of his earlier work, and I always think The Last Picture Show is like where the movie star comes in, because you see it here. He is playing the supporting role, the aggressive kind of older friend. They're the same age, but he's definitely the more like experienced, the more well versed, and he has the, I would say, the best side story just in terms of like growing up too, because he starts off the young, rebellious, lustful kid. He matures into, I love this girl, I want to marry this girl doesn't love me, so now I'm gonna have to take a step back and reevaluate my life. And when like the things come to terms that maybe she never actually liked me and she was just using me, I'm gonna have to figure out how to adjust everything that I'm doing, and eventually leading to him going to war. That's a really good conflict resolution for his character, because that's what you do with that aggression. You know, he's got Korea coming up, and it makes sense. I really did enjoy that. And he's got that charm. You just see it right from the get-go. He's just talented and interesting, very James Dean in some of his portrayal. I think him and Timothy could like really switch who was doing like their best interpretation of, you know, like a rebel without a cause. They are both just exuding some perfect, just leading man stuff, and their chemistry is great. The weirdest part is like their really cheesy fight scene, but again, I'm not going to fault it for that, because that's how you do it at this time. It just looked really fake, and for the amount of like glass that is shattered over Sonny's face, there is not that big of a scar, which I completely get, and it's just interesting. Sybil Shepherd is also in this film, and she's young. She starts an affair with Peter Bogdanovich after this, and it's a very interesting character that I'm very surprised a film in the 70s made. It's a very sexual film. Of course it is. It's coming of age in a generation where everything was becoming available to you. It doesn't hold back any nudity or any of that stuff, so I'm assuming it's a racy film of the time. But Sybil's just like kind of coming into what like Richard Linklater would do for a lot of his career of his female characters, and that is like they want sex, but they're not going to explicitly go after it. If it comes to them, they'll do it, and they'll manipulate events to get there. But it's never about like, let's make this grotesque or these women into these lustful monsters. It's just, that's a thing she wants. She meets a guy she likes and she's going to go for that. She does become the character that ruins a lot of people's lives, but it happens, and I completely get that, because this film is also about the age difference and the generational gaps, and a lot of the older women in the film are like, don't go after a girl like that. That girl leaves trouble. She breaks hearts along the way, and they present that in an honestly perfect way, because I get it. You know, I completely understand, you know, Peter Bogdanovich's need to put him in the situation with the older women. That is something we literally saw last year with Paolo Sorrentino's, I should say, The Hand of God, because he was interested in the older family member there. And I'm just saying, I get it. When you're doing this coming of age tale, especially with somebody who is wanting more from life and you're looking for experience as opposed to like the moment, the older women are going to be drawn to, or you're going to be drawn to the older woman, I should say. And I think the relationship of Cloris Leachman's character, it's kind of weird, and it feels very much like, you know, kind of in a sense just uncomfortable, but there is genuine care there. He doesn't like break her heart until, you know, Sybil ruins his life, which I think works, and giving her like the actual moment of satisfaction where she can call him out on it and say, I shouldn't be crying over you and you shouldn't be apologizing to me. Why am I apologizing to you? That's good stuff. And it's very earnest, and it works for the small town aesthetic where this woman feels trapped, and maybe the escape is the one person that recognizes her. So I did like that. Again, it's very cliched for the genre, but this kind of created the genre where you're seeing all these people just growing up and learning. And it worked really well. So I can't fault the film for sticking to what would become the trope for this genre. But the relationship between Cloris Leachman and Timothy Bottoms, it worked really well, and you really bought their chemistry. And you just feel like that is Texas in a sense. It's just really weird. My favorite character in the film, though, is probably Sam, and he dies like he's the, you know, the driving force behind what's going to happen with Sonny and Dwayne later. His death was important, but I just like that character because you have to have like the older adult figure that is the voice of reason for everybody. He supports these kids. He treats them like they're his own son, and he is just caring and kind to them. And he has just a great speech that I love, a great speech about guys talking about their romantic tendencies that doesn't come across as like needy or gross, or it's just like talking about a woman's beauty. He's just like, there's a woman I went swimming with, we fell in love, and she was already married, so we could never have that, but it was just nice to have that connection. Later you see it's Sybil's mother who's that woman. It's a great speech. It's very much Joseph Cotton and Citizen Kane talk about seeing the girl on the boat. It has that feeling, and I just adore when it does that. And that all that was just great. And the script for this is just beautiful. it drags a little bit, but that's just it happens. Sometimes these films go somewhere, but the wording is great. The dialogue is fantastic. The characters are completely nuanced and believable. They're a great time. It's kind of pseudo-sexual, but that's again a part of the tropes and part of what this genre is going to become. And I just think the camera work itself is just beautiful because there's more like, long shots and continuous takes than you'd be expecting. And it plays around with what you're doing when you're showing like an automobile driving, especially in this time period in the 70s. That aesthetic or that style of filming could look really cheap, but it didn't. It looked authentically good. It looked beautiful. Everything about this film was special. And it just goes to show you that Peter Bogdanovich, an incredible director with a great career, really did something special with this, and it's a shame that he didn't get bigger and better than some of the other guys, but I get it. Subtle film about growing up, seeing movies and loving your friends and your family and the troubles of being in a small town where everybody knows everything. Sometimes your life could get ruined, sometimes your life falls apart, but you always can escape in the film. And again, it's another trope of the genre, going to the movies, but The Last Picture Show is the perfect title for this kind of film, and that made it extra special. So I know it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think The Last Picture Show is a great coming-of-age film with great directing and great writing and incredible performances by people that will become storied actors in themselves. So that is my take on this rendition of Dramatic Tales. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe. Good luck.